and welcome to Meno Ministries, Church of the Nazarene Wednesday night Bible study. I'm Tina Cattane, and we are currently saturating in the book of Hebrews. So we're going to take a little bit of a journey through Hebrews. We started last week with an overview of the book of Hebrews, and we're going to get into chapter 1 today. So I'm going to change my layout here so you can see the screen. So, first question, did you do your homework? Did you read the book of Hebrews in the past week? If you did, what stood out to you about what you read? So put your answer in the comments, whether you're on YouTube or on Facebook, put your answer in the comments below. And brownie points for the first person to answer that they did their homework and what they got out of it. Okay, so here's the outline that I'm going to be following for this Bible study. We are not going to be able to cover chapter 1, verse 1 through chapter 2, verse 18 in 1 week. So it'll take us a few weeks to get through that. But these are the sections. So Hebrews 1:1 through 2:18 talks about Christ being better than the angels. In chapter 3, 1 through 19, it talks about Christ being better than Moses. In 4, 1 through 13, it talks about Christ being a better rest. In Hebrews 4:14 through 5:10, talks about Christ being our great high priest. In Hebrews 5:11 through 6:20, it talks about having a full commitment to Christ. Hebrews 7:1 through 28, Christ is above Melchizedek. In Hebrews 8:1 through 13, it talks about a better covenant. Hebrews 9:1 through 14, a better sanctuary. Hebrews 9:15 through 10:18, a better sacrifice. Hebrews 10:19 through 11:40 is all about faith. Hebrews 12:1 through 29 is about perseverance. And Hebrews 13:1 through 25 is about Christian behavior. So those are all the things that we're going to cover. And it'll take however long it takes us. We'd like to take our time here and dig into the deep stuff, and dig out all the little jewels and gems and pearls that we can find. So our first section, Hebrews chapter 1. I'm just going to read to you Hebrews chapter 1, and hopefully it's familiar because hopefully you did your homework last week and you read through the entire book of Hebrews. So Hebrews chapter 1 says, on many past occasions and in many different ways, God spoke to our fathers through the prophets. But in these last days, he has spoken to us by his Son, whom he appointed heir of all things, and through whom he made the universe. The Son is the radiance of God's glory and the exact representation of his nature, upholding all things by his powerful word. I'm trying to make up my own words here, sorry. After he had provided purification for sins, he sat down at the right hand of the Majesty on high. So he became as far superior to the angels as the name he has inherited is excellent beyond theirs. For to which of the angels did God ever say, you are my son, today I have become your father? Or again, I will be his father, and he will be my son. And again, when God brings his firstborn into the world, he says, let all God's angels worship him. Now about the angels, he says, he makes his angels winds, his servants flames of fire. But about the Son, he says, your throne, O God, endures forever and ever, and justice is the scepter of your kingdom. You have loved righteousness and hated wickedness. Therefore, God, your God, has anointed you above your companions with the oil of joy. And in the beginning, O Lord, you laid the foundations of the earth, and the heavens are the work of your hands. They will perish, but you remain. They will all wear out like a garment. You will roll them up like a robe. Like a garment, they will be changed, but you remain the same, and your years will never end. Yet, to which of the angels did God ever say, sit at my right hand until I make your enemies a footstool for your feet? Are not the angels ministering spirits sent to serve those who will inherit salvation? So that's Hebrews chapter 1. And like I said, it's all about how Jesus is higher than the angels. He's better than the angels and higher than the angels. So let's dig into verse 1, which says, God, who at various times and in various ways spoke in time past to the fathers by the prophets. So various times, this original meaning is many portions as of books. So many books. Over the course of possibly 1,800 years from Job, about 2200 BC, to Nehemiah, which was about 400 BC, the Old Testament was written in 39 different books reflecting different historical times, locations, cultures, and situations. Various ways. This included visions, symbols, and parables, written in both poetry and prose. Though the literary form and style varied, it was always God's revelation of what he wanted his people to know. The progressive revelation of the Old Testament to describe God's program of redemption and his will for his people. And so the 2 Timothy 3:16 and 17 says, all scripture is God-breathed and is useful for instruction, for conviction, for correction, and for training in righteousness, so that the man of God may be complete, fully equipped for every good work. And that includes the prophets of the Old Testament, that's not how I want to say it. All of what they wrote was pointing forward to Christ. All of it was laying the foundation or paving the road, if you will, for Christ to come. And so that's what Hebrews 1:1 is talking about. And in Hebrews 1:2, it says, has in these last days spoken to us by his Son, whom he has appointed heir of all things, through whom he also made the worlds. So when it says last days, the Jews understood the last days to mean the time when the Messiah, Christ, would come. So I have some scriptures here I want to read to you, and they're on these next 3 slides. In Jeremiah 33:14, it says, behold, the days are coming, declares the Lord, when I will fulfill the gracious promise that I have spoken to the house of Israel and to the house of Judah. You see, the kingdom had split. The original kingdom of Israel had split at some point, and the northern kingdom became Judah, and the southern kingdom was called Israel. In those days and at that time, I will cause a sprout for David, a righteous branch, and he will administer justice and righteousness in the land. In those days, Judah will be saved, and Jerusalem will dwell securely, and this is the name by which it will be called, the Lord our righteousness. So Jerusalem was in the north, in the land of Judah. So that is why it says Judah will be saved and Jerusalem will dwell securely. So in Micah, which is one of the minor prophets, 5:1-2, it says, now, O daughter of troops, mobilize your troops, for the siege is laid against us. With the rod they will strike the cheek of the judge of Israel. But you, Bethlehem, Ephrathah, who are small among the clans of Judah, out of you will come forth from me one who will be ruler over Israel, one whose origins are of old, from the days of eternity. So this is clearly a prophecy of the Messiah. And this is where they got the birthplace of the Messiah would be in Bethlehem. And out of Bethlehem would come one who would be ruler over Israel. And his origins are of old, so he's always been from the days of eternity. So then we have Zechariah 9, and chapter 9, verse 9 and verse 16. Rejoice greatly, O daughter of Zion. Shout in triumph, O daughter of Jerusalem. See, your king comes to you, righteous and victorious, humble and riding on a donkey, on a colt, the foal of a donkey. On that day, the Lord their God will save them as the flock of his people, for like jewels in a crown, they will sparkle over his land. So let's go back to where I was here. So the Jews understood that the last days, is the time when the Messiah would come. And the fulfillment of the messianic prophecies commenced with the advent of the Messiah. Since he came, it has been the last days. So I have a few more scriptures I want us to read. And these are in the New Testament. Those first three that I read were all Old Testament prophecies, but these are scriptures that we find in the New Testament. So in James 5:8, it says, "You too, be patient and strengthen your hearts, because the Lord's coming is near." So James is saying, we're in the last days, the Lord's coming is near. 1 Peter 1:20, "He was known before the foundation of the world, but was revealed in the last times for your sake." So he's clear. 1 Peter is clearly calling these times from the time Christ came, till now, the last times. And 1 John 2:18 says, "Children, it is the last hour. And just as you have heard that the Antichrist is coming, so now many Antichrists have appeared. This is how we know it is the last hour." And this was written less than 100 years after Christ died. And they were already saying that there were many Antichrists that have appeared. So it's been happening for a while now. And in the past, God gave revelation through his prophets. But in these times, beginning with the Messiah's advent, and advent just means coming. So the advent, we talk about advent at Christmas. It's the 40 days, I believe, before Christmas is Advent. And that Advent is the preparation for the coming of the Messiah. So every year we prepare our hearts anew for the Messiah's coming, to remember his coming. But the Messiah's Advent was the day Christ was born. So since that day, beginning with that day, God spoke the message of redemption through the Son. So it's through the prophets in the Old Testament, through the Son in the New Testament. Okay, so heir, the word heir, he called Christ an heir. Everything that exists will ultimately come under the control of the Son of God, the Messiah. This inheritance is the full extension of the authority which the Father has given the Son. So when you inherit whatever it is, if you inherit a kingdom, if you inherit an estate, you have the authority over that which you have inherited. And so Jesus is the heir of the kingdom. And with him, we are joint heirs. In Daniel, it says, "In my vision in the night, I continued to watch, and I saw one like the Son of Man coming with the clouds of heaven. He approached the Ancient of Days and was led into his presence, and he was given dominion, glory, and kingship, that the people of every nation and language should serve him. His dominion is an everlasting dominion that will not pass away, and his kingdom is one that will never be destroyed." So Daniel was a prophet in the section between the Psalm and the New Testament, where all those prophets are. And he had a vision of Christ coming to the Father, who he called the Ancient of Days, coming into his presence and being given the key, the kingdom as his inheritance. So Matthew 28:18 says, "Then Jesus came to them and said, 'All authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me.'" So again, he's the heir. He has the authority. Worlds. The word worlds in verse 2. The word can also be translated ages, and it refers to time, space, energy, and matter, the entire universe and everything that makes it function. And John 1:3 says, "Through him all things were made, and without him nothing was made that has been made." So when we look back, and I should have put this on every slide, and I apologize for not doing that. The word heir, I lost it. Here we go. Everything that will exist. Oh, that's not it. I'm looking for the actual verse. Hebrews 1:2. Has in the last days spoken to us by his Son. In the Old Testament, he spoke by the prophets. Now he's speaking to us by his Son, whom he has appointed heir. He has given authority of all things, through whom he also made the worlds. So the worlds, again, we're going to skip through here. For it refers to time, space, energy, and matter, the entire universe, and everything that makes it function. Jesus made it. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God, and through him all things were made, and without him nothing was made that has been made. And the Word became flesh and dwelt among us. So those are in a nutshell, the scriptures that show that Jesus was the one who created all of this. And he has the inheritance. He has the authority. It's been given to him by the Father. So that is verses 1 and 2. And that was a lot today. So we're going to stop, and I'm going to give you some homework. So what I want you to do for homework, you're going to need a notebook. And if you don't have a Bible dictionary at home, or a study Bible that has the cross references, you can find those things at BibleHub.com, and there's some other places too. BibleHub is the one that I'm most familiar with. But that doesn't mean it's the best. It's just the one I'm familiar with. So in your notebook, you want to make note of any words that you want to look up in the Bible dictionary, and then go look them up and write their definition in your notebook. Look at the cross references either in the margins of your Bible, or you can go to Bible Hub and you can find the cross references by choosing a verse. If you choose the verse, the cross references will be in the right-hand margin on Bible Hub. And so you don't have to make a note of all of the cross references. Just go and read them, and if there's any that stand out to you as significant that you want to remember, or that you want to, or you think adds deeper meaning to what you're reading, write that down. You can either write just the reference, or you can write the whole thing out if you want to. So then you can make a list of the attributes and characteristics of Christ. For instance, in the verses that we just read, we read that he was an heir. We read that he was a creator. And so you would write heir, you could write creator, or you could have a highlight system. There's special pens you can get to highlight your Bible so it doesn't bleed through. And you could choose a color for the attributes and characteristics of Christ. And you could choose another color for the promises. So I want you to write down any timeless truths that you find, or you can pick a color to highlight the timeless truths that you find. And a timeless truth is something that it was true when that scripture was written, in the context that it was written in, but it's also always true. It was always true before that, and it's always going to be true. So the fact that Christ is the creator of all the worlds, that is a timeless truth. It's always going to be true. It always has been true. So you could, whatever color you choose, you could highlight, or you could just write it. You could have a page in your notebook where you write down all the timeless truths you find through the study. And also write down any questions you might have. And then if you're not able to watch this live, you can put your questions in the comments, or you could put them in the Meno Ministries communication group page, and we'll get those answered for you. Or you might just write them down and keep them in your mind, and they might be answered as we go along if you don't feel comfortable asking. So that's your homework for this week. And I'm going to ask you to share one thing with me next week when you watch next week's video to write down one thing that you that struck you, or that you felt like was important, or just one thing that you wrote down in your notebook in the comments, so you can earn brownie points. Okay, so that is the Bible study for tonight. And next week, we are going to go into, we're going to start with verse 3 of chapter 1 of Hebrews, and we'll see how far we can get. So until then, I don't believe there's going to be a sermon Sunday morning, and there's not going to be a gathering on Sunday night because Pastor Bob and I will be out of town. But I'll be back next Wednesday with part 3 of A Journey Through Hebrews. And until then, you have a blessed week. Bye now.